Why don't we start? And I have no idea who's going to come on or not, but I can read the opening prayer. It's a little early, but a few seconds early. But this way, then you'll be able to read what you prepared for us to hear. I'll read the prayer in English. Today in English, an interpretation. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and have commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Amen.
Amen.
So, David,
Okay, thank you,
you're
Marty.
on.
Thank you. I'm going to do my Macbeth quotation today, which I've done before for you, but it means so much to me because it was after I got my doctorate that I was reading Macbeth and noting that there are over 60 references to time in that play, and that with the speech that he gives on the death of his wife, I mean, Shakespeare has just written "The Queen, My Lord, is dead," and he's sitting in his study wondering, what the heck am I going to write now? What is Macbeth going to say? And I like to think there's a tap on his shoulder. He turns around to see God behind him, and God says, "Will, take a break. Get some coffee, check your email, play a few video games. I got this." Because I think that the speech I'm about to read is divinely inspired. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in its petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour across the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, signifying everything. And the reason I'm adding those last two words is that it is my belief that without even being aware of it, Shakespeare may have anticipated general relativity, Einstein's theory, by over 300 years. And I think that particular speech is one of the finest scripts ever to hit paper. And I just wanted to say that, and also to end with a special ode to our Rabbi Roman. And he and I are celebrating many decades since our mitzvahs in April of 1961. And back to you, Marty, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
Thank you.
shalom.
Much shalom.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Rabbi Miri, you're muted.
I celebrated my birthday in April.
Wow.
Yeah, we are all Taurus.
Happy birthday, Mary.
Happy
Thank you,
birthday.
I was going to say something.
But the Torah portion from the anniversary is not till next week.
Ah,
Right. So
but I was born, according to the Jewish calendar, on Hei Be'iyar, which is the day of Atzmaut, if the day of declaring the Atzmaut.
you.
But I'm 1 year earlier. So anyway.
Very interesting. Boy, I didn't realize that we had a whole bunch of bring babies here.
That's right.
And mine's coming up. I think it's the day or the day after you guys leave on your trip, Marty.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yes, I was mentioning, and I will get this out. I will put together something that Stacy can send out to everyone. I'm going to be gone for a solid month. One is for pleasure, the other is uh, being available to help Sue with some hand surgery that she's going to have. So we're going to be traveling, and then when we get back, she's going to have some surgery. So I won't be available to lead Torah study for over a lengthy time. And I'm going to send, I'll have Stacy send out uh, the exact dates that I'll be gone. So I'll be able to, do things if there are times that work out. I may join as a listener, but not leading everything. It depends on time and where we are up in Alaska. And yeah, we're going to be taking a sort of a naturalist type of tour of the Alaskan panhandle.
Envious.
It'll be an interesting. It'll be interesting. A lot of hikes, a lot of looking at wildlife, things like that. So it'll be good. And
Wendy and I had two wonderful Alaskan cruises, which we really did enjoy.
this will bring us to some other parts of Alaska we haven't seen before. And I always wanted to explore the Tongass National Forest. There was a fellow by the name of Glenn Ketchum, who was a photographer that I knew, and it became world famous for his photography about the Tongass National Forest, and he stimulated a lot of the national organizations for preservation of land for wildlife and forested areas. And there was a tremendous national movement, and they prevailed over what the government was doing. They were selling timber, okay, for 50 cents a tree to the Japanese at that time. And we were paying $50 for the lumber from that tree. It didn't make sense, and it would have meant complete decimation of the air. But so we're going to be visiting that area where he is well known to this day. Anyway, enough about me. Let's get on with today's session, and we'll see where it takes us. We're on Numbers 31, verse 21. And if you recall, when the Israelites, after they came back from battle, they brought back a lot of booty, and they brought back the people they were supposed to kill. But now they had to kill them again. And be sure that they killed those people. But then the booty is going to be distributed, but things have to be ritually cleansed and purified because of blood, previous usage by people who had done idol worship and things like that. And so here we are with verse 21. And David, if you could read Numbers 31, 21, starting with that. And then why don't you read through 21 through 24?
Okay, I'll be happy to. And Eleazar the priest said unto the men of war that went into the battle, This is the statute of the law, which the Lord hath commanded Moses. Albeit the gold and the silver, the brass, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that may abide the fire, ye shall make to go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of sprinkling. And all that abideth not the fire, ye shall make to go through the water. And ye shall wash your clothes on the seventh day, and ye shall be clean. And afterward ye may come unto the camp.
Okay.
You may
We
come to
we
the-
had touched on this a little bit last week. Anything to be mentioned here? Any other ideas?
One thing that came to my mind was the issue of when there was a plague, I think it was the black something plague, the Jews were, uh, they said that the Jews are responsible for that.
Yes, that
But
was the Black
later
Plague.
on, we talked about, I mean, it was spoken that Jews were aware of cleanliness more than other people. And they probably didn't follow exactly what the Torah says, but things like that, wash our hands in the morning, wash our hands before eating. So when I read this, I see that it becomes a piece of who we, not how who we are, but how we operate, our a framework of operation that has to do with so much cleanliness and purification.
Mm-hmm. I think that is it. I don't know if they understood that from the beginning,
No, no,
or if as a result of doing this, it saved many
yeah,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where does the phrase cleanliness is next to godliness come from?
I think it's the Puritans.
But obviously that
Yeah,
links into
Yeah.
it,
yeah, yeah,
right? You know, to
yeah.
to connect maintaining purity and or cleanliness as as a divine command.
Yes,
Right.
right.
But it obviously helps quite a bit, even in surgery. You know,
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah,
want
sure.
everything sterilized,
yeah.
which leads me to my next question. Uh, in listing all of these heavy metals, uh, some of these have lower melting points than others. And so what I find interesting, it doesn't talk about it, but it had to be not uh, a all-consuming fire. It had to be a low temperature type of fire because otherwise tin would have melted. And and the lead. uh, and then you have a gold and silver, copper, and iron that just gets red hot. But so they have higher temperatures before they start melting. So it would have been like I would assume, not a bonfire, but a campfire type fire, just for the sheer physics. Otherwise, it would destroy some stuff.
Or the fire on the altar.
Yeah,
Oh,
It would have to, but it would have to, you couldn't have a roaring fire because it could do more damage to the items than what you would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't say anywhere
Yeah,
of how long they had to be in
right,
the fire.
right,
It just says that, kind of this translation is they have to pass through the fire.
right. So it could have been like waving it over the fire or
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Right.
Yes, or through the flame. So I think I just found it a little interesting from that standpoint. It has nothing to do with the spirituality of side of this. Any other comments?
Well, the fire shouldn't have been very, very strong, since otherwise it would have burned also the offering. And since it was meat that was eaten, you don't want charcoal. So, yeah, it's interesting to see how they did it. Usually it
And then
wasn't
then it
either,
was sprinkled with water to cool it down. So you could hold it.
right. Those that make barbecues, no.
But anyway, any other comments? Well, if not, Michael, would you care to read a little bit?
No, I just put drops in my left eye and
Okay,
I'm blind in my right eye, so it's gonna be,
okay.
one thing about they have different sounds. I just thought I'd bring this information
Mhm.
to light, if I may. I mean, it's not gonna really apply to anything. It's just information that might be interesting, if I may. Uh, Years ago in Las Vegas, the slot machines, the where the money would fall down, it would fall into
Right.
a lead cup which had no sound. And what they discovered was when the money fell down into these lead cups, it made no, it was no advantage to the casino. So they decided to use a cup where the money would fall into the cup, it would jingle, would make a louder noise, and this would influence other people to the slot machine. I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with anything, but since it's got these medals, I brought that in just for information. This is
Okay.
a Torah study class. I apologize. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's interesting.
It
Since
is
then they use gold ones.
What?
Did they change to gold?
plastic.
You never know. But back then, anything could happen. I don't.
Certain they're softer. Lead is softer, so it muffles the sound more. It's still there, but it's going to be more of a thud type of sound rather than the
I
jingle.
didn't mean to make a discussion out of this. I'm sorry.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's the wrong side of my head speaking. Okay. If David,
Sure,
would you be able to read verses 25 through the end of 30?
sure. And kind of we're at Numbers 31, of course, and verse 25.
Through
Here we
the
go.
end of 30.
Okay, and it's Numbers 31. Okay, I'm a little bit puzzled. I'm a little bit needing to get myself standardized here. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, take the sum of the prey that was taken, both of man and of beast, thou and Eleazar the priest, and the heads of our fathers' houses of the congregation, and divide the prey into two parts, between the men skilled in war that went out to battle, and all the congregation, and levy a tribute unto the Lord, and levy a tribute unto the Lord of the men of war that went out to battle, one soul of 500, both of the persons, and of the beeves, and of the asses, and of the flocks. Take of their half and give it unto Eleazar the priest as a portion set apart for the Lord. And of the children of Israel's half, thou shalt take one drawn out of every 50 of the persons, of the beeves, of the asses, and of the flocks, even of all the cattle, and give them unto the Levites that keep the charge of the tabernacle of the Lord.
Okay. You're reading from Hirsch, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's this one.
Okay, that's okay. By the way, I was reading in another source, Rabbi Sachs, to be specific, that Rabbi Hirsch entered the rabbinate in 1849. That's all quite a while ago.
Well, which Rabbi Hirsch?
Oh, just a second.
If it's Samson Raphael Hirsch, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's who it is.
Okay.
Oh my, it's going to take me a while to find that, but so there are two Rabbi Hirsches. Is one related to the other? Is one a son?
Oh, I'm sure there's many more than many more than two, but
Okay.
I don't know specifically of a translation or a commentary. There's Hirsch and there's also Hertz, Hertz.
Okay, this would be Hirsch.
Yeah, right. There's also, I think it was Joseph Hertz, who was chief rabbi of the British
Right,
Empire.
that's different. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's a different one, right?
So, but it's a while back. But that's why the use of English is a little different from what we're accustomed in our more modern translations. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
Yeah, I don't want to be picky, but in this case, we have to differentiate between Elazar, the priest, and Eliezer. Eliezer was the slave or the aide to Abraham, and this is Elazar, the priest. So if we remember, we should do that in the English as well. Elazar, God helped.
Okay. Thank you. That would be, so it's a similar type of issue there. Anyway, any comments about this? Why, why is it the first thing we have to ask is why an inventory is necessary? Why would that be necessary? We've done it before. We've taken inventories in the past, but it mentions the reason it's in our reading, and that question is easily answered. Well, if you're going to divide it equally, between the combatants from the Israelite community, but also it says, and the rest of the community. This is in verse 27, and so it's not just the combatants, but the rest of the community too. So the question I would ask is, why is it important to give an equal share? I mean, somebody may have come back with more women. Somebody may have come back with more gold. By the way, it's women who have not had any carnal relationship or relations. Gold or other animals, things like that. Why is it important to divide them up equally?
To keep everyone equal in a way.
Okay. Why is that important?
Uh, so no one will is considered more important than another.
Okay. Any other comments on that?
Well, I think Michael's on the right track in that they're
Yes.
trying to establish a society and a people that doesn't have, other than the priests, the Kohanim and the Levite, other than them, it's not going to be a caste society. That
Right.
everyone can everyone participates in the sacrifices. Everyone participates in bringing
Right.
grains, to the temple. Everyone participates in supporting this and that and each other, and all of the mitzvot that are commanded. That so I think you can't say, okay, well, since you were of the right age or you had the right skill or whatever it was, that you were able to go to battle,
Right.
that you're entitled to a different share.
Good.
I had my role to fulfill, maybe, and there's the whole sequence of who was not allowed to go to battle.
Right.
Someone
Right.
who had built a house and not dedicated it. I mean, all that whole list. So it's not my
Right.
fault that I wasn't chosen for the battle. Why should I be penalized in not receiving some of the spoils of the war in that sense?
Right.
Okay. So what is from the standpoint of responsibility, what does that do within a community when you're helping others do it? Do you have a responsibility to do it, to share the booty, so to speak?
Well, but as Rabbi Norm is saying, you didn't go to fight unless you were this age. So, okay, my birthday was before, so I'm not going, so I'm not going to get anything from this war. It's very difficult for me not to start thinking about what's going on in Israel regarding the fighters and the non-fighters. But since it's not a choice, but it's a duty and it's very clearly established, then what about the rest of the people? Because they were born 1 month later, they cannot get anything. And they probably supplied, I don't know, food or clothing or, something.
Marty, when you use the word responsibility, I guess the challenge then is, to me as a non-combatant, is for me to find the proper meaning and role of my response. How do I contribute to the society,
Right.
to the general population? If it's not going to be in battle, what is it going to be?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that sentence, it's a long sentence, but it implies that. I think it's a very important concept. Think in terms of the temple community as opposed to the larger community first. And some people may have uh, been fortunate enough to have things. Is it their responsibility to share it? Or is it or is it something that should be encouraged to share? It has a value to share rather than a duty to share? Is it a
Actually, you know
spiritual
what?
value?
Both things appear.
Yeah.
There is nedava as your heart is giving,
Right.
and there is a meches, there is a tax. So you have both of them, which is a very interesting way of the contributions to wherever it is, building the temple or not. And if I wasn't born a Levi, so what's my responsibility versus theirs?
And early on when they were building the Mishkan, they everybody contributed to it, and it's implied that they did it from their heart, which in ancient times was the seat of the soul. Okay, they didn't realize that, that's how they imagined it. And they did that because the heart may still be beating, even though the brain is no longer functioning. Yes, Rabbi.
Right, but as Rabbi Miri said, so you have the nidava, you have the heartfelt,
Yes.
you know, generosity. You have the meches, which is the tax, or there's a
Mm-hmm.
different word here that I saw. I forget what. Oh, a levy. Okay, they
Levy.
use a
Yeah.
levy. All right, but you also had the truma,
Right,
and a
right.
truma was something that, I mean, homiletically, it's something that lifts you up.
Right.
But on the other hand, truma is more like bartering. Okay, it's
Okay.
is
Oh boy.
I is I'll do this and I expect to get something from it. It's not just simple
Okay.
generosity. It's that I will, if I pledge this, I expect that there will be something in return.
Okay. So it's more like a vow.
It's more
Mm.
connected to a vow. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, but I always look at it. You get a very good feeling when you see that you're able to help someone, whether it's physically or emotionally, whatever.
Sure.
You get a great feeling that comes over you whenever you can do that. And uh, I guess you sort of get addicted to the dopamine release that way, as opposed to getting it through, as Michael was talking about the casinos, or that stimulates you, the release of dopamine in your brain, or the cell phone. That's how it functions. It releases that dopamine. But I think the best source of doing it is, uh, you know, a rabbi teaches, okay? A musician teaches. Uh, Farmers will teach others, and that feeling is a very important feeling for any community to thrive.
It's it's a value. I can see it as a value, as a trait, as a value to to do to do what you can to um, let the community see what you're doing, and it could be passed on by you simply doing it, and other people see you do it. And if it's a good thing, and it has to be continued, and in that way, it's teaching,
Yeah,
instructing.
good point.
I just listened to a great podcast that I listen and I would pass it. It's in Hebrew. I might send it to Reb Norman. Uh, the statement was that until the building of the tent of meeting and the and the temple, everything was given to
Mhm.
Israel. Everything was given to us. And now it's time for us to start doing stuff. Now, at the moment that you give, you have investment in what appears. It's not
Mhm.
just a feeling, but if I give money to build a synagogue, I feel that part of the synagogue is mine too, because I contributed. You can also say about the teacher when a violin teacher teaches Isaac Stern or Itzhak Perelman, and they very successful. They said, "Oh, some of me is there. I contributed to build, and therefore I have an investment in it as well as
Sure.
being responsible for it." It was a very nice. There are wonderful things there. Are you interested, Norman?
Sure, sure, absolutely.
It's just fabulous.
Any any other comments about what we read as far as it talks about a levy in verse 28 for the Lord, uh, and this is by the warriors themselves, and then their half shared given to Eleazar the priest as a contribution to the Lord. And then it talks about how the rest of everything will be divided up. Any comments of that?
Seems
Well,
like
this,
the Levites do well, huh?
Yeah, without working very hard. Well, they had to clean the temple after all the
Right,
blood that's there,
right.
so that's not fun.
And they didn't have all the cleansing tools that we have today. So it would have been a very hard task. But I'm going to just bring it. I didn't mention it before. I have to give Rabbi Sachs credit for mentioning this in some of his writings. And it's been said by others. I think Rashi, when it comes to uh, uh, Reuben and Gad, and also here, according to God and Moses, the the that people come before are mentioned before the animals in verse 30. And it also applies in the other sections that we'll be coming to. And I want to just say there's a look for the differences in how that is applied in several different situations. Okay. Because it is important, and so there are several different considerations there.
But Marty,
Yeah,
uh, so yes, human beings were part of the spoils of war.
yes,
Okay, but what was the expectation? Not from the from the priests of the Levites, but what's the expectation for the average Mr. and Mrs. Israelite? Okay? What's the expectation that if they're going to be given a human being
hmm
as booty, is that as a slave? Is that
yes,
as a potential mate for their children? Uh, you know, I, I don't remember too many comments addressing that, and I've something that I've
Interesting.
always wondered about.
That is very interesting because uh, there are a lot of them, but maybe, in the scheme of things, you should think of them also as fellow human beings, that you have a responsibility, and that's the level of responsibility that I think is being
Well,
asked
yeah,
for.
but is it my responsibility then to care for them, or to care for them, to provide for them, or to just have them be part of my extended family, or my extended family unit,
Right.
and and treat them respectfully, or is it the understanding that they become my slaves?
Yeah.
It could be
Good
looked at in
point,
all of the above.
And at one point, Ben Gurion was offered from the Indian, I don't know who, an elephant. And he said, that's very nice, but I'm sorry, I don't want it. I don't want anything that I have to feed. So here getting that, if you have to
Uh-huh.
feed it, thank you very much. So that's a good point. What are they going to be? Well, I think that booty and that is part of the stuff that this person is going to own. So perhaps it is for slavery or just of ownership on more workers. So I don't know.
I find it, that's a very interesting thing. It's not mentioned here what the responsibilities are, and once you receive it. But what, but we know, and I would assume the people knew that how they treated things would either improve their lot or the lot of others. The community, was it the community going to thrive? And that's been a theme throughout Torah right from the onset. It's yes, it's stories of individuals, but it's about a story of development of if you will, building how a nation is built.
Mhm.
So maybe we're supposed to have been influenced by some of the earlier stories.
And
Maybe,
the number of people were 16,000, 16,000 people that had to be divided. That's a lot of people.
mhm. So by the time it is a lot of people, but there are more Israelites than there are. Would you divide that up one per family?
Well, you have to look at the census and the ratio, and then and figure it out.
So but you can, and that is just by crunching the numbers.
Right.
Okay, but it becomes a very important process. Uh, how do you treat another person, even if they are a worker that who's in your employ?
Well,
Um,
back in Exodus, we encountered the the policy the policy manual for how to treat
right.
your workers, and how to treat your slaves, and things like that. And this is, all those who wonder, when when the phrase is extended to to you and the stranger in your midst. Where did
Yeah.
these strangers come from? Did we just kind of pick them up along the way, wandering through the desert, or are these the people that's referring to, that we have to treat them equally as much, the same that we treat our own people, our own family members.
Well, the Israelites could not have a slave. That's to me the way I'm saying it, because we were slaves. We were slaves, and we know all those years what that's like. And so that would teach us that we could not do to someone what people have done to us. So how the hell can we do that? So I can't see that a Jew could have a slave, that an Israelite can have a slave. They may call it that way, and I think that's why when they did that, the slave of an Israelite was treated in a much different fashion,
Right, exactly.
in a completely different fashion, with rights, and after 7 years or something, they were freed with money, and God didn't have to open up the floodgates or anything, because we had learned from that. So I'm listening to all of this, and it's kind of odd.
Okay. Well, maybe maybe this is here for us to have this type of discussion.
Right.
Because it's sometimes easy to forget what we read 5 years ago, or 4 years, or even a year ago, or even yesterday.
You know, also, I'd like to mention something about the tabernacle.
Mhm.
We're talking about the Lord's tabernacle, but after some time, I believe each of us, I became a tabernacle. I became a tabernacle. I think each of us have become a tabernacle. And what is in the tabernacle? You have the ark, and you have the Torah. So within me and all of us, I believe, since I am a tabernacle, so what's with me? I have a soul, which is the ark, and my heart is the Torah. Just something I just thought I'd mention, and I thought about that.
Good. Good. Or any other comments? So let's read David, if you would be kind enough to read verses 31 through 41.
Okay, here we go. It's a long read. Okay, so let's go deep breath. And Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. Now the prey, over and above the booty which the men of war took, was 600,000 and 70,000 and 5,000 sheep, and threescore and 12,000 beeves, and threescore and 1,000 asses, and 32,000 persons in all of the women that had not known man by lying with him. And the half, which was the portion of them that went out to war, was a number 300,000, and 30,000 and 7,000 and 500 sheep. And the Lord's tribute of the sheep was 603 score and 15. Whereas Hamlet says, I'm getting ill at these numbers. And the beeves were 30 and 6,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 3 score and 12. And the asses were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 3 score and 1. And the persons were 16,000, of whom the Lord's tribute was 32 persons. And Moses gave the tribute which was set apart for the Lord unto Eleazar the priest, as the Lord commanded Moses. And the children of Israel's half, which Moses divided off from the men that warred.
Okay, David. Okay.
overdoing it there. So
It's okay. Any comments here? Just as a refresher for our memories, this is Eleazar. Even though it's typed out as Eleazar, it's pronounced Eleazar, as Rabbi Miri was mentioning. Any other comments here?
well, speaking of Eleazar, I believe that Eleazar or Eleazar is pretty close to Eliyahu. And just a few days ago, I spoke to my brother Jerry, whose Hebrew name is Eliyahu. And I asked him if mom and dad named him Eliyahu only so that they could sing at the annual Seder, Eliyahu Hanavi, when Elijah comes into the door. And Jerry wrote back and says, I sure as heck like to think it was. Anyway, that's a aside. Just wanted to throw that, toss that in somehow.
Okay.
I think that I mentioned in the past, the word El means
God.
deity at that time. And our God is El, Elohim. So all these names that start with El, start with that, and then another piece. El Azar, Azar means the helper, or he helped. And the same goes with Eli, it's my deity, Ezer. So in this case, it's Elazar. Never mind.
Okay. Any other comments about the numbers?
Why was it so important for these to be written down?
If it's not written, it doesn't exist.
Well, this is why is it necessary to take any census?
No, I understand that they had to take the
That's
census,
right.
but why did the redactors of the Torah feel that they had to include every single, number, and it's repetitive, it's redundant. Okay, why,
In multiple
yeah,
places. Yeah.
exactly. So
Honesty,
I,
that they were honest in their counting.
Well, because they had to pay meches. It says here that you give these numbers to the people, but then out of those numbers, you have to give
right,
as the
yeah.
meches, as tax,
Right.
God, which is probably the Levites again. So you have to calculate how much tax you pay based on your income. So maybe that's the reason to have it written, but
Later generations, they said, well, if we're going to be authentic to Jewish tradition, then we have to impose the same kind of meches, the same kind of expectation and tax.
yeah, and that's probably they were working on achuzim, on percentages.
Right.
So if it's percentage, it makes a lot of sense that it will be that way. But frankly, my dear,
Well, what does a tax mean? If you are paying a tax, okay, yes, you can look at it as a burden, but it is also, you can look at it from the other side of it, that you were given something and you had an unexpected amount, and okay, there's a tax to be paid on that excess, but it's fair. The community, because that either goes to the community or to the people who lead the services in Torah, the priests, they're doing their job, and it's recognition of that, but it's also recognizing also from where the gift actually comes from where the gift comes. It's so in this case, you're also acknowledging not just the role of everyone in the community, but God himself. You're recognizing that you're in a way instead of a sacrifice, you're paying a tax, and it okay, but you're recognizing that ultimately all of the benefits have been a gift from God.
Well, actually, I see one of the problems of the people that say, oh, I pay too much taxes and we shouldn't pay taxes. And I wouldn't mention who says that, but the issue is that you have civil servants and you have to pay the teachers and to pay the roads and to pay the water and to pay this and people do not understand that today. And
But
that's it's Klal Israel. One thing is to have your personal one, but the meches goes to the community, to services to the community. In this case is the tabernacle. And I hope that the temple use that money for things that benefited the entire community. That's how I see tax and meches in this case.
yeah,
Well, what about a purpose in accuracy? There should be or this going forward with whatever you're counting and looking at. There has to be at least I see a purpose, some sort of to be accurate and counting, and maybe that's the repetitiveness of it is to demonstrate that there's a very major purpose in being accurate with in life with whatever you're doing.
That's a very good point.
it is. It is. I was going to mention that there are analogies. Uh, if we own property, okay, it's taxed, but you don't want you want the tax to be fair, and you want that's why you have an assessment. An assessor comes along and does all the necessary measuring, uh, and uh, and that is the size of the property on which you live, and that is what's taxed. So that's and as Rabbi Miri is talking about, it's your fair share of what you're paying to the community so that all the other services can be provided.
See, today, if I can bring that today, it's very difficult because there are what they call loopholes. There are loopholes in the tax code that not everybody could take advantage of. And when you talk about the fair, pay your fair share, that clashes with those loopholes because people who make a lot of money and able to get away with paying a little bit of tax and it doesn't seem fair, but they're doing it according to the law, and it becomes somewhat unbalanced and unfair. And there's a lot of people who don't see that, unfortunately, doesn't see that. So it creates a lot of dissension, a lot of problems. And those things have to be cleared up in order to make things more balanced, in my opinion.
And that is the what happens. There's a constant shifting over time, how that scale is balanced. And it sort of rocks back and forth rather than being fixed. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Any other comments?
No, but
So
just to add
yeah,
what Michael's saying, and the issue, not the loopholes, but the issue of helping people to be equal which is never something easy to do. But in the law, in court, we know that you should not לא תכיר במשפט, in court, you have to see the poor person just like the rich
That's
person,
right.
the one that's a king versus a pauper. So the issue of equality, which I think is a very beautiful concept. I think it's a Marxist one, actually, or a socialist one, or the kibbutz kind of one. It is something that good people would like to achieve. Yeah, I think so. That's my political thing.
So it depends on how things are run. There are other philosophies out there. There's social. I always draw a difference between socialism and socialist. Okay, all communist countries, since you brought that up, are socialist.
Communists. No, they're communists. They're not socialists.
No. In their title, due respect to how they name their countries. They will say the Socialist Democratic State or the Socialist Republic of. Okay, as opposed to socialism, where you feel that you need to go and help others. I think there's a little difference in that.
Yes, there is.
Okay. So it's just me. I'd have to really do a deep search in the
Well,
use of
one is
words
an
here.
adjective and one is a noun.
I know.
It does. I'm sorry I brought that up. I'm sorry. I spent
It's
2 years
okay.
in the kibbutz
It's all right.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, Rabbi Mary.
Yeah. So, any other comments about what we read? Rabbi, did we answer your question and why do all the numbers crunching?
No, we expanded upon it. We didn't answer it, but
Yeah. That's why I say it's
sure, right.
honesty. Honesty is part of
Well,
responsibility.
honesty, accountability,
Accountability. That's right.
right. Continuity.
Right.
I would guess that the expectation is that, I think Rabbi Miri used the term also, is that the percentages, not so much with 62,000, or 16 or whatever, but the percentage becomes a guideline for for the acts of what we're talking about, of responsibility or justice or sharing or things like that.
Right.
What about consistency? Does that have a place to be consistent?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I said, that the numbers are used as guidelines so that consistently through history, that the institutions of the Jewish people or whatever can use these numbers and these percentages when they're talking about, it's like we talk about the tithe, the 10%. And things like that. So maybe it's only a starting point for negotiation in the fundraising process, but it is to try to find that this is the consistent Jewish message or Jewish pattern, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
There is another point that came to my mind now. It's that tension between the tension between the person, I just lost the word, the person and the community. And that's something that we see in our traditions, that there is, the community and there is the individual. And that's why we see that even in the prayers, when we say Shema Israel, we say Shema, and Israel is
The community.
probably a group. And then the whole thing is for one person, Ve'ahavta and so forth. It's in singular. But that dichotomy, you say it in English?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting one. I love it in the language that in English we lose. But this is a case of that, between the individual, that word could come, the individual and the community. I think it's a beautiful thing, and perhaps that's what maintained us for so long. We take care of each other. Israel Arevim Ze Lazeh, and things like that. And I think that this is an example of that. But Michael, you're right. The issue of accuracy and continuity and all the nouns that you put for that are very, very relevant.
And by the way, this whole concept was dealt with, what we're discussing right now, rereading Plato's Republic for this other philosophy class. It's 10 volumes, 10 books. And in it, he's talking about human nature, but also different types of people and the responsibilities that it's almost right out of here. The responsibility that a community has taking care of the individuals and the responsibilities of the individuals taking care of the community. It's tremendous. Rereading it now, and you've learned other things along the way. You go back to it, and you think it's very good. It's a very good treatise. But I think that it pertains here. That it in this particular case, we're dealing with the relationship. Yes, Rabbi has mentioned it before. It's a combination of a triumvirate, if you will, God, man, and community. What was it, Wittgenstein? Who is? It starts with a W. The last name of the philosopher, the Jewish philosopher.
That does the
Yeah.
triangle? No, Rosenzweig.
Rosenzweig. Thank you.
There's a W in it, but it's not at the beginning.
Yeah, I got it. It was in the middle. Okay. My right eye was stronger than the left
There you go, there you go,
eye.
I do that all the time.
But there's nothing new under the sun. But there's always somebody who's thought of these concepts before. But I think that there's a lot to be said about the relationship of those three aspects in any relationship. Anyway, David, since since Rabbi Miriam and Rabbi Norman also have their commentaries in front of them, would you care to read?
Where are we?
We would be on verse 42.
31,
Numbers
42.
31, verse 42.
Okay, I'll read that.
And why don't we go through?
To
Why
47.
don't we? Yeah, that'll do. Okay.
Okay. And of the half for the children of Israel, which Moshe had split from the people who were serving in the army, And the congregation, half of the sheep was 337,500, and the cattle were 36,000, and the asses were 30,500, and the human beings were 16,000. And Moshe took from the half of the children of Israel one share out of 50 from humans and from animals, and gave them to the Levites, who kept the watch of Adonai tabernacle, as Adonai commanded Moshe.
Okay.
This is Friedman translation.
Any comments about that?
I wanted to mention again that relationship between Moses and God. And over again in the scripture, it's saying the Lord commanded Moses, and Moses obeyed the Lord. But I get another sense when I'm reading all this that God and Moses actually became friends because obviously God knew everyone, but Moses was one of the few people that really was able to get to know God, and which comes out so often in this book. I just wanted to toss that in.
Okay. I guess we can say throw Abraham into that situation too.
Yeah, and I think that it's possible we could throw everyone. Maybe Moses here is representing all of humanity. But I always like to think that Moses and God had a special friendship.
A special relationship for sure. I just was reading a book by Le Carre, and one of the guys there says, "So what's my job?" And they tell him, "You are the red telephone." Just going a straight line. So I think that that's the kind of relationship that they have. But you're right that they know each other by now so well.
Yeah, that's the old joke about it. That for me it's a local call.
Yes, that's
Back
where I
in the
thought
day.
David was
Right, yeah,
going.
back in
That's
the day,
right.
back in the days
Yeah,
of long distance versus
right.
local call. Right, right.
Yeah.
Brilliantly put, both rabbis. Thank you.
Okay. Who would care to read from 48? I'm just gonna,
I'll read
why
it.
don't we?
I'll read, Marty.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Why don't you just do it
I'll
to?
try it. And my eye cleared up a little bit. So I'll try to read a little, okay?
Sure.
I'll
And
do it.
read as
I'll
much
do what
all
I
the way
can.
down. If you can make it to the end of 54, fine. If not, you call it. You call it.
Okay. At 48,
Yes.
the commanders of the troop divisions, the officers in thousands, and the officers of hundreds approached Moses. They said to Moses, "Your servants have made a check of the warriors in our charge, and not one of us is missing. So we have brought as an offering to the Lord such articles of gold as each of us came upon: amalekites, bracelets, sign rings, earrings, and pendants, that expiation may be made for our persons before the Lord." Moses and Eleazar, the priests, accepted the gold from them, all kinds of wrought articles, all the gold that was offered by the officers of thousands and of officers of hundreds as a contribution to the Lord, came to 16,750 shekels. But in the ranks, everyone kept his booty for himself. So Moses, Eleazar, and the priests accepted the gold from the officers of thousands and the officers of hundreds and brought it into the tent of meeting as a reminder in behalf of the Israelites before the Lord.
Nicely read, Michael. Thank you.
Good.
Very interesting.
Rabbi Mary, I'm going to ask you, why did you say that?
Because here the what we'll call the officers, the mefaktim, they gave to the temple all this stuff that they took, but the regular soldiers did not. And they gave it as a truma, as a present, as a contribution,
Mm-hmm.
and the others didn't. And I find it interesting.
The, the,
And I think what's interesting is that it's called a kapara.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's called an atonement or an expiation, I think is the word that
They
Michael
use it, yes.
Right,
So
right.
what are they guilty of? You know, why are they what are they atoning for? If
Right.
everyone was present, if the census was accurate, what are they atoning for?
Michael, any ideas?
well, I'm not sure.
Well, they were in battle. Well, they took lives.
Well, I was going to say that.
Well, they were
Okay.
commanded to.
Yeah,
Right.
but they still, even though it's their hands that were bloodied,
Well,
and as commanders, they're telling their troops to do it.
Okay.
well, I can take
Now you're
a
getting
little.
somewhere.
See, I could bring that a little closer here, in reference to the Holocaust. When these people were caught, they they said, well, we were commanded to murder, commanded to kill, and so you have to look at that also, I think, as a possibility of, uh, well, taking someone's life, taking multiple lives. Is it the right thing was it the right circumstance, right thing to do? So I think that when you look at it from a little closer end,
Mhm.
it can bring some thoughts about that what happened at that time.
That's a very good point, Michael.
And I think about uh, um, General George Washington. He used to pray before and after, uh, before entering battle and when he came back from battle. And I wonder if that was part of, there's no real mention as to what he was praying for. But you start wondering if he was praying at the end of warfare, not just giving thanks that he survived and that his troops survived, but also praying for the ones that had to be killed. You start wondering about that. And that as a commander, he was telling people, no, you got to do everything. You got to do everything. I'd take it into a lower level because we can envision that. We can envision General Patton. We can envision General Eisenhower. We can also talk about President Truman with his statement, "The buck stops here." Okay, in other words, it's a level of responsibility, but you had to order a whole bunch of people to do things that normally are horrible acts. So I don't know,
Yes.
maybe that's part of it.
Well, if you look at it from a a reasonable and logical position, he's sending his troops into battle.
Mhm.
He's holding himself responsible for those men. So when he makes that prayer, it would be nice to think that he's praying for everyone. However, in that particular situation, since he's commanding, he's the ultimate commander of those troops. It seems to me that he's praying for those troops, that they're successful in killing which he perceives as the enemy.
Mhm.
But you could be right the other way. But it seems to me that logic, because not everybody thinks like you, Marty. You know, not
No,
everybody, but
but then there's more to it. There's much more to it. Why the commanders? Why it's important for the commanders to do this? What are they doing? By
commanding. They're
no,
commanding. No?
this is after the battle now.
Okay.
They are taking a tremendous amount of the 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 the
booty.
spoils of war, if you will, and coming up with them. We read about that also with that that the people gave voluntary uh, portions in the building of the tabernacle, uh, and like that. But why is it important for a leader to do that? Okay, both rabbis had their fingers up simultaneously.
Okay, I'll go quickly.
Okay,
No, these guys have not done what Moshe told them to do. And Moshe is angry about it, and he sends them back to do it, to kill more people.
that's right.
Well, is Moshe the one that's directing them? So maybe they are atoning because they didn't follow the instructions of killing more people.
Very good point.
As
Very
it
good
goes
point.
there. I don't know, but it's interesting that they were killing less than what they were supposed to.
Right. And that is a very strong argument, yeah. But why are they just atoning for that? What about everything else that they did? Remember, this is indiscriminate killing. You don't know who these people are. When you go into combat, you don't ask questions, who are you? What do you do? This, you're there for a totally different job. Okay? And by the way, this is what leads to PTSD, because when you have to do things that normally are frowned upon, and that's putting it mildly, the it's hard coming back into society. So this is just one aspect of PTSD. But you know, go ahead, Rabbi. I still
Okay, all right, okay. So the Hertz quotes a contemporary of his, which means is from about 100 years ago, named Ehrlich. I don't know who that is, but who goes in the following: the same phrase of making atonement for the warriors, right? Same phrase is used in connection with this battle in Numbers. After signally defeating the Midianites, the victorious warriors come to the tabernacle, bringing jewels and other valuable booty as an offering in order to make atonement for their souls before the Lord. Other people sing songs of triumph after a victory over their enemies. Why did these warriors offer sacrifices of atonement for their souls at such a moment? It is another indication of the horror of shedding human blood that the Torah inculcates. The same feeling that prompted the Jewish sages to tell that the angels when about to break forth in song over the Egyptian hosts drowning in the Red Sea, were silenced by God in their words, "My God, my creatures are perishing, and you are ready to sing." Okay.
Right.
So, in other words, even though there's a command, because even though God saved the Israelites and Egyptians had to die, that doesn't mean that we celebrate that. There's still tragedy and there's still horror with that, and therefore they make expiation and they offer atonement. I'm going to have to excuse myself. The grandkids are all calling at 11:30 to say happy birthday, so
Okay.
I need to be online and be able to see them.
Got it.
So wish
Okay.
everybody Shabbat
Enjoy the
Shalom.
day, Rabbi.
Thank you. We do have a service next Saturday morning.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
no Torah study. There's a worship next Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
hey,
Take
Shabbat
care.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom.
Happy birthday,
Shabbat shalom.
Rabbi.
Mazal
Happy
tov.
birthday.
So this is an interesting aspect of it, and I'm glad that the rabbi mentioned what he said. There's a consistency in this whole concept, and you know, and this is my own comment here. You've got to see what really happens in warfare. I think I've mentioned this to other people, and it is the word horrible does not even come close to the feeling of terror. I mean it's just awful. And when you uh but you've been programmed by your leaders to do certain things, and you do them, and you may even be honored because of that. It by the way, in the series Band of Brothers, this is discussed, and they don't come to an answer. Where one of the soldiers, he has a different reason for doing it. He just wants to get away from it all, and all of a sudden he winds up in a German camp, and he suddenly, oh my goodness, what do I do now? And there's a young German soldier opposite him, and they're both fumbling with their weapons to see who's going to shoot to kill the other first. You can't make friends with them in those types of situations. And the American soldier winds up not only killing the other one, but then his mind snaps and he kills all the Germans. They haven't even lifted up a finger towards him, but he just kills them all. But he's the one that gets a promotion, thinking that it was such a great feat. But it does affect his life as the story progresses. And so there has to be some reckoning for this type of behavior. And all too often, maybe we've forgotten this. And that's just me. That's just I just wanted to say it, that, my piece about it. I had to get it off my chest once. I had to inspect the body bags. And I never told the kids or Sue about what I had to do. And all of a sudden I said, and it bothered me, and I just was in another class, and and it hit me, and it suddenly I had to write something about it, and by doing that, it allowed me to talk about these feelings more. But it's something I wish, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm sure, over and over, that I wish everybody who is in charge took warfare in a solemn way, It's not to be ever to be taken lightly. And I think that's part of the message here. I think this is what God is asking us to do. And it's personal and all that for me too, but having witnessed certain things, that it's not that pleasant. And but yes, our leaders, all of our leaders, should have witnessed warfare.
Um, I'll ask, this is a loaded question and there's no time for this, but I'll ask it and we can talk about it at make another discussion, but is war necessary?
At times, we can justify it that way. We can say it's necessary. And unfortunately, you can be pushed into situations where that is, one of the possible outcomes. And, but I think that it should always be, people should try to avoid that situation.
Yeah, war at certain times in life is necessary. I believe that, and it's very, very unfortunate. And why I bring that up is because there's a bumper sticker that I see from time to time, just very seldom. I see it, and the bumper sticker says, "War is not the answer."
That's right.
I've seen that. War is
I
not
would
the
agree with
answer.
you. I would
But
agree with you.
but
But
that's
sometimes,
that's a very difficult. Can't look at it like that because you have to, under certain circumstances, you have to engage in war, or else
Mhm.
if you don't, you will die or you will be taken over. You will die or you will be taken over by the person who 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 who's waging the war on you. So
So,
you have to counteract that and
yeah.
engage in a war. You don't want to do it, but you have left with no choice other than I don't. I want. Okay, I'll live being ruled over a communist country, and they'll put me in a dungeon. I'll just live like that. So it's a give. It's a give and take. War is not the answer. You would like to think no, it is not. But sometimes you have to engage in it. There's no, you know, the United States. If the United States didn't engage Adolf Hitler and his Nazis, the United States could have said, we're not going to get in this war. If that was the case, we would be living under Nazism. We would live under the Nazis. That's very clear to me.
And most of us wouldn't even be there to live under the Nazis.
Yeah.
So, yes, circumstances can change things.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I'm sorry for venting, but I just had it.
No, it's
came up.
important. No. What you did is very, very important. I was going to say it's a mitzvah, the fact that you brought it up for discussion. Because a lot of people certain people like to sweep things under the rug and don't want to talk about it. Oh, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. A certain group. I'm not going to mention no names.
Okay. But but I apologize to the group.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I wanted, any other comments about what we've been reading about divvying up the spoils of war? On a different subject, you can take the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, and in a way, we are still fighting World War I to this very day because of the way the nations are aligned and like that, and what happened, how various parts of the world went, because your community was in a particular location, one day you were Czechoslovakian, the next day you were Hungarian, and the next day you were Polish or whatever. I mean, when you think about these things have happened, and I really think that somewhere there needs to be a nice discussion about these subjects, because uh, none of the issues were ever solved with the Treaty of Versailles.
On the
That
contrary,
yeah, all
the
it did.
Germans were so humiliated there.
That's right. That's why that led to their, you know, their building up a hatred for the rest of the world as to what they were receiving. Uh, the world within which the Germans lived after World War I was not very good. Well, it was punishment. It was punishment for what they had started. But what we forget is that there was a time period called the Franco-Prussian War, which they started also. So you can see why this, and now World War II comes along. Hey, Germans started again, but the circumstances were such that it's my brain. I always have to read up about the other side's point of view. And they felt as Rabbi Mary said, humiliated. They were really suffering, and that's why Hitler found it easy to take over. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Okay, thank you, Marty. I'd like to ask, if I may, Rabbi Mary a question. Okay. Okay,
And
so I have to make just a few words here. Then I'll ask the question. Vladimir Putin, for many years, wanted the Ukraine. He talked about it very often for a long time. And finally, what Putin did, he dropped a bomb on the Ukraine. And with the talk about getting it back and with the bomb dropping, was it right? What do you think? Was it right for Ukraine to answer that, to fight back? And then the war started. How do you feel about that, Rabbi Miri?
well, you guys were talking about, well, when the Nazis were here, we had to protect ourselves. When this was here, we had to shoot back. But the idea is not to start, regardless which side does it.
Yeah.
It is, if Putin wants that part and wants that, what could he have done instead of the bomb? He could have said, guys, this was ours before that. And they will say, no, no, no. And they will sit for days talking about it. And one might say, okay, you know what, you're right. I'll give you a piece of this, not, coming to a compromise or something like that. So we're talking about the two sides, Michael. It's not fair to say, okay, the Ukraine had to fight back because this started. It shouldn't have started. If it doesn't start, you don't have to defend yourself. So that's the idea, is to resolve things without fighting, regardless of what side you are.
Yes, I agree with what you said. However, there are circumstances that if you don't, if you have to know who you're dealing with. You have to look at all the dynamics, everything. If you feel that you're dealing with somebody who has some sense of decency, and I think world leaders know that Putin is a very dangerous character, and you can look at his motivations and what he did and what he was saying, and that's why I mentioned for years he was talking about getting back to Ukraine as part of the Soviet Union, as part of Russia. And when you have to, you have to look, and I understand, and I understand your feelings, and I sympathize with your feelings, Rabbi. However, you have to look at certain, and the president of Ukraine knows what's to expect from this guy, because they're neighbors, and so I don't think he had, in my opinion, I don't think he had any choice. If he would have let it go, he would have been under Russian domination. I think that if you look at it from a logical, not a wishful, not a wishful a position, but a logical position. See, all these dynamics, I believe, are very important to look at, to come to a reasonable conclusion, some reasonable, intelligent conclusion, not just wishful thinking.
Well, the answers
The
for that,
question was, can we do without a war? That was the question. And now this is not an idealistic thing. I mean, let's go to our home, let's go to Israel. You can say, yeah, well, Hamas is a piece of shit and we have to fight them. Look what they did. But, in 1948, maybe we should have come to some kind of agreement and some kind of how to resolve the issue of the people that were living in Israel and had to move, and the Palestinians and all that stuff. Maybe we should have done that instead of fighting until Ayom Azeh, we don't stop. And so it could have been done. It still can be done without a war. And trust me, Israel knows what Hamas is and who they are, and they can say, well, you cannot negotiate with them. But there are certain things probably that can be done. I'm sure of it. And the Israelis are sure of it. I mean, at least 70% or 80%. So, the idea is, if from the beginning you don't fight, from the beginning you try to resolve it. Let's say that you and Marty are disagreeing, you're standing in the temple and you're disagreeing. We had a case like that in Torah Study of two people that they were so pissed at each other that they went outside and they started
right,
hitting each other. Now, they could have resolved it without it. But at the moment that I start, you have to respond.
right,
So it's a very big question, Michael, really, really big.
yeah,
In the past, countries fought for oil. There is always a reason. These days, it will be for water.
that's right.
It's endless, or for believing that I'm well, never mind. So
Yeah.
that's and you are absolutely right, is an idealistic way of thinking. And it's not reality, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I hold that belief. It's like what we say, ani ma'amin. I ma'amin that something can be done. Without that, and you know what? I keep asking how people could do what they do. I mean, I cannot understand. Am I made out of some other material? Because it cannot occur to me to do things like that. But ich weiß nicht.
Yeah, but Mary, I agree. I would exhaust every possibility to avoid a conflict. And this is what has been done in Israel, I think, with the Israelis. I think they've bent over backwards, including today, after the murder of the 1,200 people, and all of this, and everybody was saying ceasefire, and Netanyahu finally agreed to a ceasefire, but the other end, the Hamas didn't want to get involved with that. And they said they were going to look at it. They just wanted time to regroup. And who was yelling for a ceasefire? Everyone around the world. Everyone around the world.
Well, they want to have it
Well,
because they
that's
know
your way of looking at it. I
that's right.
think that
But just
the
one little point.
Israelis were with the head in the inside the, how do you say it, in the ground without paying attention of what's going on and not
What?
trying to resolve it before this case, Michael. You know,
It
this
is.
is a result of behaviors that, anyway,
No, there are just too many facets
exactly,
that have to,
exactly.
it's not a simple yes or no, because there are so many different angles that have to be
Yeah.
addressed. Some are long-standing, some are short, but the history is just it's different than most other countries.
Yes.
And if you look at how it was created and the other parts of the world that were considered for a Jewish state, remember, it's my feeling that it was the rest after witnessing what had happened in the Holocaust, the rest of the world, not it was a burden on their conscience that they had looked the other way. And so there were other locations in the world that they had looked at. The UN was looking at for establishing a state of Israel. The same thing would have happened because the world was still practicing colonialism, and that's another issue that has to be addressed because the no matter where they would have picked, they didn't pick any of their own countries. They picked areas in their colonies for where is the state of Israel would occur. So think about it. How would you feel? I do this all the time. I play devil's advocate. How would you feel if you were forced to cede land that you thought was your land? And that's the issue from the side of the Palestinians. And so it becomes the players all have different reasons for this. It's highly complex. It would take years and years of discussion to get to an understanding of each one of these separate issues. And then you would have to hope that everybody agrees that those are the main issues.
This
So
is one
it's hard.
Yeah, this is one subject I really looked into for a long time now, Marty. It's the Palestinians, Hamas, and all of these people, they're not interested in Israel. They are interested in, and they're now using, and they've been using this term for a long time. They use the term final solution. They are now using this, and they've been using it, but now it's coming to light. They're not interested in Israel. They're interested in
Right.
the final solution.
That's
And
right.
so nothing is going to change that. And they're taking parts of the Quran to they're playing with some of the words in the Quran, and they come up with their own term now. Their own term is final solution, and of course they got that from the Nazis. They got that term. So I've been looking at this very, very carefully, and they're manipulating the whole world about. They're very, very smart, and they know what they're doing. They're highly organized, and that's unfortunately what they're after. They can't be trusted. If you give them a ceasefire, it's only going to work against the Jews in Israel, and so I have certain things. I've sent all of these things to someone.
Okay. Well, I think that these are very important subjects on everyone's mind. There are lots of different aspects to this, and that's all I can say. And I think this would be a great sequence of discussions that could go on,
Yeah.
but it would be very, very difficult to come up with a final answer because
Well, it's
it's not going to uh, be acceptable to one group or another. There are too many groups involved in this. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Anyway, we'll discuss it some more, and I'll give you a buzz, Michael, and I'll give you a buzz too, David, so we can do other things. But I just wanted to say that that I'm sorry I got us off on a tangent of warfare and all that. It's my fault, and
But it
I
was very
apologize.
important, Benjamin.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
you shouldn't apologize for that. Not at all, Marty. For one, I appreciate it.
Okay.
That's one of the things about this Torah class. It's
Yeah.
not it's not in a box. It opens up a little bit here and there. And
Yeah.
for me, I don't know, maybe for some other people it may be boring, but for me, I speak only for myself, Marty, and I treasure this. And I
Okay.
love you for this. I really do. You're great.
Well, thank you, but it's okay.
So give me
Anyway,
a buzz.
I don't have any other announcements. I know the rabbi was mentioning we don't have any Torah study next Saturday. So in 2 weeks, I'll see you. And then I won't see you for a solid month. Okay. So I just want to let you know, and I'm going to have Stacy send it out. I don't know. I don't have a separate list for Torah study, and I don't think there is one anymore. So I will definitely want to mention if other people can step forward to lead to continue, and then we pick up where we leave off when I
Yeah,
get back.
yeah. I have a question, Marty. One
Yeah.
question. I'm no longer a member of the temple, and so I
Oh,
know I no longer get emails from the temple, which is fine, However, I would still, since I would like to continue to be a member of the Torah study class. So I don't know how to get I'm only interested in the emails connected to the Torah study class.
okay. You're not going to get it since they go out through the office. That's why I was reminding other people who are not members of the temple who are still in the group to be the same. You were fortunate you saved the link. It's still good, and
And for how long is it good?
It doesn't matter. You
they
go
just
to the
renew it.
web page, do what I do. I go to the web page and I look at the calendar, and you see if there is Torah study or not. And until now, the link to the Zoom is the same one.
It is. It has been the same.
So will
So,
it continue to be the same?
to
Well, I
my
think they
knowledge,
announce
yes.
it
I have not.
Okay.
differently.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
Okay,
have
good.
not
I have
heard
that
from
link.
Les.
I
Yeah,
have that link.
good. Yeah,
yeah,
keep it because then it should be there. And if we mention when there's a Saturday service, then you know that we're not going to be.
right,
Right,
right.
right.
I will get that the dates out to you, Rabbi Mary, and because we need some people who will be able to at least lead, the sessions, uh, over the primarily from the end of May through the what is it? To almost the end of June.
Well,
Okay.
another possibility is, Marty, I'm going to travel during the summer as well. Uh, Maybe to take a break in the summer for a period of time. I'm sure that Norm is going to go out as well.
Yes,
We
also.
all escaped the heat. So,
But
you know,
the group, I think we should ask the group though. If they
exactly.
want to continue it, it's fine.
Right, right.
But it would be up to them to, to
Exactly.
share the discussions and just, keep things moving along. And that would be fine. And
Yeah. Yeah,
but
so it needs
yeah.
to be, it needs to be discussed and decided and, figure out an avenue to do it. I don't know. I don't,
Yeah. But if everybody does a session here and there, each will have their own way of doing it, and it's fine.
yeah,
And but it gets done. That's the thing. Well, we'll see. We'll
I
see.
have
But I'm going to send that out to you and the Rabbi Norman too.
one one announcement really quickly,
Sure.
Marty. I'm looking at doing another Stand with Israel fundraiser in the near future.
Oh,
And I'm not sure yet. There's a few locations, but I will keep everybody posted on that as we go forward.
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I think we can end our session this week, and so next week we will begin chapter 32
In 2
2 weeks
weeks.
from
in
now,
in,
2
in
weeks.
2
2
weeks.
weeks.
Okay,
God
2
bless
weeks.
you all, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Yeah,
shalom.
Shalom, Shabbat,
Shabbat
everybody.
shalom.
Thanks. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.